Welcome in to another episode of the Need for Seeds presented by the Betting the Pitch Podcast Network. I'm your host, Real_G Warner. I'm here with Big East Ben. This is the January 12th edition covering pretty much a big loaded Saturday of college basketball games. Don't watch the NFL. We're watching college hoops because we're getting ready for a big run to March. And Big East Ben has some thoughts on the season so far, maybe a couple of rants, and I think we're ready for them now.
Hey,
Hey,
you asked me how I'm doing?
how are you doing?
Bad. I got a speeding ticket today.
Speeding ticket. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
See, if you don't have a car, you don't get speeding tickets unless you steal a car.
it's going 48 and a 35.
Oh my God.
Can you believe that?
Did you ask the guy, are you joking?
I gave him a little attitude. I let him know I wasn't happy.
Did you say, what are you going to take me to jail?
Body,
Go ahead,
body
buddy.
language wise.
Did you put your hands out the window and say, please take me to jail?
No, I said, hey, we're late for our marriage license appointment. I thought that would, I thought the man would be swayed by love, but apparently he's a cold-hearted law enforcement officer.
I'm not going to offer my thoughts on a law enforcement officer because I know we have a lot of great people that wear the badge that support the Betting Pitch Podcast Network because why wouldn't you? So
Yeah,
thank you for that.
back to blue. I need to get a bumper sticker that says that to help me out next time.
Yeah, I think we're starting to teeter-totter into dangerous areas for this podcast network. So let's stay in the middle. And how else are you doing?
College basketball wise, I'm down. Well, I was down. So Marquette had a rough week. Lost to Seton Hall on the road on Saturday. Chase Ross separated his shoulder. They followed it up by playing Butler at home, 12 and a half point favorites. Should have lost by double digits. They cut it to six at the end. Sean Jones in that game for his ACL. Um, my dad texted me during the game. He said, Shaka just gave the Wojo clueless look. We are doomed. Sean just tore his ACL. That was before they actually announced it. We are doomed. Kolek must know that he is getting charged with a felony. We are doomed. I don't know
Well,
if that was like a Terrence Shannon. I thought he saw something on Best before, but I don't know where it was going there.
okay. I don't want to besmirch the name of a fellow Rhode Islander on this podcast unless we actually have concrete evidence. So
No. That was just his mind was elsewhere. But look,
John Rothstein, before you report breaking news based off the Need for Seeds podcast, we have no information that Tyler Kolek is actually being investigated for any felonious activity. I think it's just a certain bald man making comments about his beloved alma mater. There we go.
so I was in the same boat, feeling the same way. I was thinking about it late last night, just kind of staring at the ceiling. And look, Marquette wasn't picked preseason number fourth in the preseason poll because of Chase Ross or Sean Jones. Good players, but you know, it was because of the other guys. When Mar- in 2003, when they made the Final Four, they were a three seed.
D
In
Wade, baby.
2013, when they made the Elite Eight, they were a three seed. Marquette is not a top 10 team. They're not comfortable being a top 10 team. We want to be ranked, in that 12, 19 range, kind of be able to sneak up on teams. We're not a national power. So, look, for the rest of the season, defend home court. You'll drop a couple games on the road at UConn, at Creighton, at Nova, probably at St. John's or at Xavier. That'll put you at 11-7, maybe 12-6 in the Big East. Go into the tournament as a three seed, as a four seed. Make some noise. Make a Sweet 16 for once. Make an Elite Eight. Like, that's where we want to be. So just positive outlook for the rest of the season.
Okay, so 11-6. So that means you'll go 9 and
12 and 6.
What?
18 Big East. 12 and 6, 18 Big East.
Okay. I'm just looking at the projected 20. Your projected record on Torvik is 21-10. The Marquette Golden Eagles, that is, with 12-8 in conference. I don't know if they've moved to 20 games, but who knows? Who knows who's right at this point?
Yeah.
But But regardless, maybe they're simulating in some conference tournament games in there. But unfortunately, I'm a little concerned that a 3 seed is very unlikely. Unless Kansas wins a ton of games, we feel like potentially that road win at Illinois is going to look very different at the end of the season. UCLA looked like a close win over a good team. We saw how that's turned out. I'm a little worried. I mean, losses to Purdue and Wisconsin, not so bad. At Providence, not terrible. At Seton Hall, maybe, especially with their turn up in play recently. And then the home loss to Butler. But I guess Thad Matta has figured out how to coach a team. I think that was one of my big adjustments coming into the season, was thinking that Butler would be bad yet again, and they've been better. And we actually have a pretty big game this weekend with Villanova coming in.
Monday.
So it's Monday. Okay, so they're off this weekend. Gotcha.
So having said all, the nice fluffy stuff, positivity, wake up. Like seriously, like this is BS. 4 for 30 against Butler. 18 shots were unguarded. They averaged like 0.6 points per shot attempt on unguarded spot up threes. Cam Jones. The only guy who I've seen more art in a shot than Cam Jones is this kid Mike Salisbury I went to grade school with. Mike Salisbury didn't get a Division I basketball scholarship. It looks ridiculous when you're shooting 20%. David Joplin, stop fading away on your threes when no one is in your face. I know it looks cool and casual and get to do the stupid telephone thing. Step into your threes. Tyler Kolek, stop looking like a little boy and playing like a little boy.
He's just trying to protect
Start
his hand.
like a little boy and playing like a man, like you did last year.
He's trying to protect his hand. He's trying to protect his hand.
Shows the team this.
Well, I mean, you could tweet it at him. I don't. I'm not really sure where it'll go. What he'll think about it, but I guess now the Need for Seeds podcast has turned into a Marquette get your feelings out type of show. All you need to really be is just lying down on a leather couch. Unfortunately, I don't have one. It's some sort of shitty one behind me.
If you give me one of these one every 5 episodes, I'll be content.
I mean, we're good, but I also hear that we're giving you a second one, but we'll save that till later in the show. So hold on. So we're going to go through the Saturday card. We got a 6-pack of games, plus we'll give you our best bets. I'm hoping mine will not get embarrassed like Arkansas did last weekend, but here we go. I actually still haven't watched it, but I did see they lost by 32, if I remember correctly. So
biggest home loss in that stadium's history.
Yeah, that'll do it. When I can't really explain that one, but fortunately, a lot of my other picks have been doing just quite okay. I did unfortunately just watch one that I lost this week, but of course, you can't really. But we'll actually talk about them later in the show. So we'll start this one though with Florida State on the road at Notre Dame. I have Notre Dame currently a 1.5 point underdog at home underdog with a total of 135. Florida State, they got off to a really bad start. Had a nice home loss to Lipscomb in there. Notre Dame, also a really bad start. Somehow stole a game from Oklahoma State, one of those out of conference MTE tournaments. And then I think that was in Brooklyn, but have somehow turned up, I guess, their play in the ACC. Maybe that's a judgment against the ACC rather than a comment on Micah Shrewsbury. But he was pretty good. Learned under Brad Stevens. Did really well, I think, to get Penn State to the NCAA tournament last year. And now he gets a home game with Florida State to try to even up his record at 3-3 in the ACC with wins over Virginia and Georgia Tech, but losses to North Carolina State and Duke at home. So what do you think about this one? What do we got here? Because Florida State, I think, is teeter-tottering on potentially turning up their season. Leonard Hamilton looked like he was a goner, in my humble opinion, or at least that's what I thought. But a couple wins or 3 straight wins all at home against Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, and Wake Forest have certainly helped. Now they go on the road where they have lost to North Carolina by 8, lost to Florida by 21, and that is the end of their list. So no neutral wins yet, or no road wins yet this season.
So since the Micah Shrewsbury scorched earth speech after the 20-point loss to Citadel for the Domers, things have greatly improved. Like you said, blew out Virginia, lost by 2 to a pretty good NC State team, and lost by 8 to Duke, and then took down Georgia Tech. Florida State, again, since the Micah Shrewsbury Sports speech, has actually been playing pretty well in their own right. Three straight wins over Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, Wake Forest. Those were all at home, though. The last time this Florida State team left the state of Florida was December 2nd for a road game at North Carolina. They've been home in warm Tallahassee, uh, for about a month and a half. Again, tell me if you've heard this before. Florida State is the tallest team in the country. Shocker. That's really not translated. I mean, they're 161st in offensive rebounding. Uh, their 2-point field goal percentage, 213th. These are guys that are just big, not good. Give me the Domers. I think, in South Bend, the run they've been on, the team has decent talent. They're just young, and it's taking a little bit to click.
Yeah, one of the more interesting looking players in all of college basketball, I would say, is this Braden Shrewsbury. Similar last name to the head coach, looks like, and they talked about it on one of the games I watched being his son. Don't really see it because his dad looks like Mr. Potato Head, but I guess it's working fairly well for him. He's playing 65% of minutes so far this year, shooting a paltry 31.9% from three. So not great, but maybe that'll improve. Maybe he's been lighting it up since the scorched earth speech from his father. I would agree with you on this one. I feel like Florida State, their biggest player is Baba Miller, 6'11", talented player, probably has an NBA future. But he's actually from Spain or Mallorca or something like that. So, they're super soft when they don't have a 7'3" guy from Chad on their roster. So at this point, I'm with you. I'm taking the Domers as well. Give me that 1.5 points, and we'll move on to our next game, which is actually the Alabama Crimson Tide. And they are on the road at Mississippi State. They are one of the harder teams for me to project in this world, but they get a trip to go to Stark Vegas. It's going to be hard to avoid all of the beautiful landscape and really distracting memorabilia, people, cowbells, things of that nature. But the nice part about that is they get to go in right after Mississippi State pulled off a really big upset over Tennessee. So hard to see Mississippi State doing it twice in a row. We did see someone, well, actually, I think I'm thinking about soccer, but it is possible to pull off two big upsets back to back, but I would generally expect it not to happen. So what are you thinking about this one?
I mean, I don't think it's really an upset, though. I mean, Tennessee's an upset. I mean, Alabama, the computer metrics love Alabama because of the schedule they play. But you know who Alabama's best win over is this year? Oregon, neutral site.
Was it Liberty? Because they beat me by 50 that game.
Well, Liberty. Oh yeah, you were on Liberty.
We have a pick 'em, by the way, here. Pick 'em total at 155.5 points.
Yeah, I mean, it's a contrasting styles game. Mississippi State actually play. Yeah, no, they're pretty plotting. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think this game these are pretty two evenly matched teams, albeit with different styles. Alabama, they haven't beaten anybody, and they struggle on the road. They beat Vanderbilt by 2 at Vanderbilt. No disrespect to Vanderbilt.
I mean, you better not, considering we both hold advanced degrees from that incredible, well-funded, well-founded, well-intentioned university that does not ever look the other way to try to keep certain people enrolled in the program. And I'm not talking about either of us in this podcast, for the record.
Neither. Yeah. So I mean, I like the Bulldogs here. Just purely being at home, purely because Alabama's been unimpressive, streaky. And I think they showed a lot with that win for Tennessee, and I think they do it again.
One nice thing about this little situation here is Mississippi State got Tolu Smith back for the last 3 games, most important player. So a lot of those metrics have not been with that guy, most important player, best player, big man in their lineup. So I almost feel like they might be even a little bit undervalued, though. Pick 'em. It's better than Torvik's got this the 2-point game, so it should be pretty close.
And he's crushed it. I mean, 23 against Tennessee. Like he's been huge.
He is, I think, their best player. So it should be. I mean, Chris Jans has been awesome at New Mexico State. Didn't get a lot of love out playing in the WAC and just being a 10-point favorite every game he played. But quietly, I feel like Mississippi State did pretty well last year, despite having a lot of transfers and trying to figure out how to play with a new coach and a new conference and all that sort of stuff. I wouldn't be shocked if Mississippi State finds some momentum from that Tennessee game. I mean, it's not, I guess, too hard to look at. They've done pretty well I mean, 12-3 to start the season. Not the most difficult schedule, but I've won
They would have lost to Southern, worst losses of any team this year.
yeah, one point loss to Southern, not great as they're 224th in the country, it looks like. Also, not a great loss on the road at Georgia Tech, but that was away. Loss on the road at South Carolina. Maybe we're getting a theme here. Road games have not been great for them, but big win on a neutral in North Texas. Also beat Rutgers by double digits. Washington State earlier in the year, and Northwestern, who seems to be, and we know that they're going to pick up a bunch of ridiculous wins in the Big Ten because that's what Northwestern does. I'm with you. I like Mississippi State here, and we'll move on to our next one, which is a pretty big matchup going out west to the pit. And San Diego State, they've been as big of a 3-point underdog so far since I've been watching it. Currently 3.5 at Bet Online. Over under is 150, and we actually have a pretty early start, 2 p.m. Central Time, 3 p.m. Eastern. So Mountain Time, that would be 1 p.m., which is the beloved time zone of one Big East Ben. Feels like an early start for the pit to get really rocking. You'd probably want all the New Mexicans to be as loaded up as possible for the arrival of San Diego State. What do you got? Where are you going with this one?
You you said it was 3.5.
3.5 right now, baby.
Okay, I'm looking at it. I thought it was gonna be more like a pick 'em. I still like the Lobos in this. San Diego State has not been great. I mean, they did beat Gonzaga, but everybody gets up for Gonzaga. At Gonzaga, Gonzaga also sucks this year. Had the loss at Grand Canyon, had the loss at BYU. Um, Barely squeaked by San Jose State. Couldn't cover the 4.5 teaser spread. I had that on my parlay. Thanks a lot, Aztecs.
Ooh,
Um,
ooh.
New Mexico is been one of the best teams at covering the spread this year. I think they're at least like top 5 overall. I'll get it up right now.
Keep going. I won't quiz you on it. I trust
But
your
I mean, they look like a different team with Jalen House in the mix. I mean, they're fast. They turn you over. Um, they're 7-2 as home. Again, I was thinking this was going to be a home underdog game based on the Ken Palm numbers, but they're 7-2 since 2021, which I believe was when Patino started coaching there as home underdogs. Um, Again, San Diego State, you got D. He's one of the best players in the country, but I think this team is dropped off, you know, a decent amount from the national championship last year, losing Matt Davis. What was his name? Who's the best player?
Matt, I don't ever pass. Bradley.
Matt Bradley. Matt Bradley. New Mexico 10-5 against the spread this year.
That's
That's
pretty
actually
good.
dropped off a little bit.
67%. I mean,
Yep.
based on the line where you're expecting it, where Ken Palm projected it, and this move, I imagine we'll see some San Diego State money, though it has been kind of crawling ever since I've been watching it today, above that 3 threshold and crashing over to 3.5. Not as meaningful as you might see in college football or the NFL, but still says something to me when you're climbing over possessions when you start lower than that. I think the market is probably backing New Mexico here at a pretty high clip. Generally, I expect favorites to take money earlier and underdog money to come in late. What is weird for me is I'm always been interested in the San Diego State squad. I do have a little bit of candy on them to win the national championship this year. So I am really hoping this is a game that they win. But I gotta admit, when I made the play, that was something I was concerned about, that they were going to potentially struggle here. Really, the best home courts in the Mountain West is what I was most worried about, which this is one of them. Certainly the pit. I mean, New Mexico fans were usually, I was giving them home field or home court advantage points in the Mountain West tournament going back years and years and years because they showed up so well. So at the pit, it's going to be really tough. We have a home game next for San Diego State against Nevada. Then they go to Boise. Then they have a home for Wyoming, and then at Colorado State, and then home for Utah State. So there's a lot of tough games in the schedule. Not an easy conference, and I think it's too big of a number for me to play New Mexico here as a home team. I don't know if I even really wanted to do it because I just don't like their style. You were right. Patino's been in the job since 2022 at New Mexico, but I think it's New Mexico home team or nothing for me. It will probably be nothing, but for the graphics sake, I'll join you on the Lobos for this matchup. And now we'll go to BYU. They're visiting Central Florida as a pretty big favorite, considering, but I guess that's also because BYU is like the best team in the world, best team since sliced bread, apparently. And now they have to go on the road to what is generally a pretty tough place to play, pretty far from Provo, Utah, going to Orlando. And I guess they had to go from Waco this week. Probably didn't go back to Utah, but then again, who knows? It was a Tuesday night game. What do we got on BYU? They are currently, I guess I'll give a number because that's what I should be doing. BYU currently, they are a 5.5 point favorite on the road, total at 143.5 points.
Yeah, I think BYU is really coming back to earth. I mean, they had some impressive wins in the non-conference. They had the win over
San Diego
uh,
State.
San Diego State, and then they looked good in that tournament where they dispatched Arizona State when Arizona. That's when all the Arizona State's players got ejected. Shout out Jose Perez. And then took down NC State in the championship where they just stopped the lights out. That was incredible, that game.
Are the Arizona State players still suspended or ejected or what? Just not sure because that win certainly doesn't look as good anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't look good now. It didn't look good then. Arizona State stinks.
True.
We did beat Utah, who gave Arizona a good game for a half, and I took the first half, and they didn't cover it. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, BYU's really come down to earth. Starting Big 12 play 0-2, losing at home to Cincinnati by 11, and then losing.
Well, they took 1,000,000 3-point shots in that Cincinnati game, which I mean, that's what BYU is going to do. They're going to go on the road. They don't care. They're going to shoot a bunch of threes. UCF is going to play a zone, and they're going to force BYU to shoot over it. And BYU is going to fall in those traps. BYU last season, terrible 3-point shooting team, really bad turnover rates. Just pretty much anything you could add into a bad offense is what they were. Started off the year super hot. Can't really explain it, but maybe some home games, maybe some fortune. Got a little momentum rolling. And let's not forget, this is their first time in the Big 12. Certainly the same story goes for Central Florida as well. But going to UCF, I mean, we've seen some good teams go in there. They generally have some pretty crazy crowds, despite
They got a great crowd. That Kansas game was electric.
I'm pretty interested in UCF. I haven't really watched a lot of them this year, I'll admit, but that's the side I want here at 5.5. Which one are you going with?
Nice, Johnny Dawkins.
All right, we'll now move to a substitution because we'll save Ben's best bet for later in the show, as will come mine, if that's the right way to put it in the English language. But we're gonna go through Virginia and the Wahoo Wah Cavaliers, one of my least favorite teams in this world, but I've been enjoying making money betting against them this year so far. They are a 5.5 point underdog on the road at Wake Forest with a total of 131. Wake Forest is getting a ton of respect in the marketplace. Especially after losing as an underdog for me in my first bet of the season on the road at Georgia. Pretty much got me off the scent that this Wake Forest team could compete, but seeing them 5.5 point favorites of Virginia, yes, this seems to be a weekend Virginia team, but they're coming off a week off after their loss to North Carolina State on Saturday of last week. So they should be in a pretty good position, a lot of time to prep for Wake Forest. What do you think about this Wake Forest team and laying 5.5 points when I can't remember them laying more than 3 points to anyone of note in the ACC in the last X amount of years?
I mean, I don't think Virginia's of note. I mean, I don't know how they're still 24th in KenPom defense after their performance. The closest team they played in a true away game this year is Notre Dame, and they lost by. No, I'm sorry. Was NC State last week, and they lost by 16. I mean, this team showed nothing.
And we're getting reason why I played North Carolina State is because I've actually had a line at Bet Online, which if you're not a member yet at Bet Online, check it out. There's a link in the podcast description to go get a 50% bonus for a first time deposit. So go take advantage of free casino money. But yeah, I played North Carolina State because Bet Online for some reason dropped NC State to pick them like right as the game was about to start, and I was like, okay, I guess you've won this time, Bet Online. You've suckered me in. I'll play it. And it was close for maybe a half, but really didn't feel that close. And Virginia, as you mentioned, so that lost 22 points to Notre Dame on the road. Lost to Memphis by 23, lost to on a neutral to Wisconsin by 24. Still haven't found a road win yet, and that's the end of our list. So 0-3 in the road. Neutral sites, they got smashed by Wisconsin, beat a bad West Virginia team by 2. I guess it probably makes sense why they're 5.5 point underdogs. But
Dude, 5% from the line.
yeah, 330th. It's been a while since UVA has had any sort of I mean, the Kihei Clark just horseshoe up his ass thing will forever haunt me. But I feel like there hasn't been high major talent at Virginia for a long time. Tony Bennett is living off of years and years of past defensive success. I wonder, I mean, they've got great defensive rates. That's probably why they're always overrated by these analytic metrics. But good old Torvik has them at 62 right now. So I feel like it's one of those, we're still not to the end of January where last season's stats fall out of the KenPom ratings. So I feel like there's a good chance that unfortunately they're still very overvalued. It doesn't seem like they're in a spot for us to take advantage of that. So you lay in the 5.5 on Wake Forest at home.
If I have to.
I mean, you have to make a pick because we're doing a graphic, remember? You do
But I
that.
don't want to do this game. Maybe do this game.
Well, there it had to be done because
Give me the
unfortunately,
Deacons. 5.5, whatever.
all right,
It's gonna
five
be
and
a
a half.
blowout.
There we go. I mean, that's all we need, baby. Who cares if it's minus 5.5 or minus 20.5? You know, if it's a blowout, it's a blowout. Um, but yeah, so I like picking that one. I know first time Ben doesn't get to choose all the games, and then here we go. He's refusing to do the graphic. I'm not including it. Blah blah blah. Okay, so we'll now go to another more competitive game, at least based on the current point spread. And that is the Xavier Musketeers going on the road with their 7-8 record. Ew. On the road to Providence, where it's a little bit different of a situation at PC now that they're missing their best player, probably best pro prospect. I think you could argue in Bryce
Mhm.
Hopkins, who's out for the year with an ACL. Go ahead.
No, Devin
You,
Carter might have something to say about that.
you think Devin Carter's a better pro prospect than Bryce Hopkins?
No, you said better player.
Okay. Well, all
He's
right.
he's leading the Big East in scoring, 23
Yeah.
points a game.
I mean, he's going to have a lot more shots because the best player pro prospect on his team is not going to shoot any more shots the rest of the year. So those go to Devin Carter most likely. But regardless, we've got a PC team with, to me, a questionable coach, but they've seemed to withstand. Well, I don't know. Depends. I mean, they've been playing really close games. The loss at home to Seton Hall, not great, but
Well, that was the game he tore his ACL.
okay. But
Conference.
I was setting it up. So then at Creighton, they covered the spread, lost by 9. At
Yeah.
St. John's, lost by 2. Suppose he got in the number pretty late. So there's been some questions about Providence, I think, on the road this year. Had a pretty poor performance at Oklahoma as well. But the Dunk is a scary place to play. Just ask 10-year-old Big East Ben when he went to Providence College. And did they go double birds at you or what happened? I can't remember. I know
I
they
believe
beat.
it was double birds and Marquette effing Stucks.
Well, I'm glad I didn't mean to bring that up on this podcast live, but since we've already talked about this being a psychology show for at Big East Ben, maybe we're just going back in multiple directions for the content for the people. What do you think about this Providence team now trying to adjust without playing their, I guess, second best player according to Big
Okay.
East?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like you said, again, they lost at home to Seton Hall. That was a game he tore his ACL. That's a huge shock when your Kentucky transfer is, you hear something pop and what's coming down the line. Play tough at Creighton, play tough at St. John's. I think that game was at Carnegie Seca Arena, tough place to play. Um, both these teams were desperate. Providence, after winning their first 2 in the Big East, have dropped 3 straight. St. John's is 1-3. Their one win over Seton Hall at home. We know how hard the Cintas like the team. The juxtaposition between them at the Cintas and away from the Cintas is huge, especially for a team that's missing their front court for the entire season. Again, let's thank Mr. Hopkins for getting hurt because otherwise this would probably be a 7-point spread. I don't think Providence is a 4-point worse team with Hopkins. I think Oduro is a pretty good replacement coming off the bench. You stick him in right in there. He's 6'9". Devin Carter's playing out of his mind, like we said before. Ticket Gaines is a great microwave guy. He can really get going. I just think Providence is has more guys than Xavier, and they got the dunk, and this should be way more than a possession.
Yeah, and their fans love throwing double birds at young Xavier fans potentially this weekend. So, as someone who grew up next to Providence College, seeing them currently as a 3-point favorite, and the total 141.5. But since we're really just doing sides for our best bets, or I guess our list for the imagery that at Big East Bend is creating on the Need for Seeds podcast Twitter page, which you're not following that, make sure you go look that up. The Need for Seeds podcast on Twitter. Follow us at Big East Bend at the @real_G Warner as well. What do you got for a pick for this last one?
Best bet?
No, for this Providence game, we're not there yet.
Friars.
I'm gonna go with Friars as well. As
Are
you
we
can
aligned? Are we totally aligned? Or are
tell,
you going San Diego State?
no, I'm going to New Mexico as well.
Okay. Okay.
I'm it's gonna be hard to get me off the home field, home court advantage little wagon going forward.
You came
I'm
here
trying
for dissension. You came to the wrong place.
what?
If you came here for dissension and combat and combative
Yeah.
arguments, you came to the wrong place this week.
Well, if you came here for disagreement between the hosts, I guess that's the wrong place. However, we did give you a Marquette rant. And before we get to the next rant that Big East Ben had queued up, make sure if you're not following me yet on Twitter, the _G Warner or Big East Ben or the Need for Seeds podcast, go look that up. Follow us on Twitter. We are putting episodes out on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, and on Spotify. Go leave a 5-star review. We actually had one 5-star review written, but unfortunately it doesn't specify the Need for Seeds podcast. So I can't put this on Ben to read, but I got a nice quote from Jevem34. If I'm pronouncing that wrong, I apologize. But Griffin is a rising star. I love compliments about me. Climb aboard the rocket ship. ... These guys are great. So since it said these guys, I have no choice but to assume. You know what happens when you assume, but I have no choice but to assume that's about the Need for Seeds Big East Ben podcast. So we're gonna figure out a way to celebrate Jevem34's 5-star review. Thank you for giving that along, and please correct me if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. I'm sure it's a family name, something biblical that I haven't studied in the Torah for a while ago, or something of that nature. But it's time to get into Big East Ben's rant, and I figured we'd thank some of our listeners before we potentially might lose them all, because I'm not sure what you're gonna say next.
Thanks, Jebediah. Okay. Rant time. So this has been, I haven't ran the numbers. I haven't crunched the numbers. But I believe that home underdogs are hitting at a incredible rate this year. And I believe if we look at like the past 3 or 4 years and compare that to the past 10 years, you're going to see a huge discrepancy in the amount home underdogs. I'm going to try to track down this data. I can't find a database that I'm able to manipulate, but I'm going to track it down. And I'm going to tell you the reason for this trend. This current generation is soft, okay? Going on the road is about going into adversity. You're battling the crowd. You're battling terrible refs that are easily swayed. You have to have a strong mindset. You got to be confident. You got to be cocky. You got to push through the adversity. Everything about college basketball today is about avoiding adversity. It's about, hey, if I'm not getting enough minutes, I'm not
Transfer portal.
I'm just going to transfer. Hey, if a fan tells me to go F myself and I suck, instead of putting my head down, I'm gonna turn and say, whatever, dude. I got 120K NIL deal. What do you got? Like these kids are mentally weak. You need to get in the gym and work at your ass off and be able to elevate your game and elevate your body and elevate your testosterone levels to match the home team that it has a crazy crowd behind it, is playing them in front of a bunch of girls that they're probably going to get with later. Like there is, this generation is mentally weak. They're soft. And because of that, I am just going to ride this home underdog express for as long as possible because I think
Choo
it's
choo. I was actually worried. I wasn't sure if we were going to start advertising low T centers or something like that to get the testosterone up. It's probably against NCAA rules, but maybe just another clip that Shaka could show his team after the first Marquette one earlier in the SOD. Now do another one on being less enthused by your $120,000 NIL deal and the Instagram models you're going to sleep with after the game. Instead, focus on taking charges, blocking shots, and making your damn free throws.
yeah, fortitude, mental fortitude. Like,
Mental fortitude.
look at guys like
Exactly.
Lazar Hayward, Jimmy Butler, Jarrell McNeil. Those guys had something.
Yeah, and make career decisions like Vanderbilt. So now we move on to our best bets portion of the show. Before we get there, if you're not a member of my Patreon, check it out, patreon.com/real_G1. Best spot to get all my picks, plays, everything in one place. You get my write-ups, my leans, everything, and you even get a buzz if you download the application. We've already mentioned the Bet Online promo code, or I guess you follow the link in the podcast description. You get a free 50% match from your first-time deposit. You can get 100% at a sister site to Bet Online, Sportsbetting.ag. I've taken advantage of that. I highly recommend it. Getting a free $500 from, I think that's the maximum from Sportsbetting.ag. Best way to make your hopefully, I mean, I don't know, use their money against them. That's what I'm suggesting. But thank you to those casinos for sponsoring us. So Ben, what is our best bet for this episode?
Best bet. We are going down to Alabama, LSU, visiting the Auburn Tigers. LSU are massive dogs. You're getting 14 points in this game. But there's a difference here. Tigers got this guy, Jalen Cook. Okay, he's a transfer from Tulane. They got him for the Texas game. Lost the Texas game. Since then, they've rattled off 4 straight, including wins at Texas A&M, at home against Vanderbilt. He had 28 points in that Vanderbilt game. He's a great guard. He's totally transformed this team. Not saying they're going to pull the upset, but I think they keep this within 10 digits against an Auburn team that are probably walking around, think they're don't stay after they, stomped Arkansas last week.
So this is the Need for Seeds podcast on the Betting the Pitch Podcast Network. You just heard at Big East Ben. He gave you a nice little 14-point underdog, LSU Tigers on the road at Auburn. I mean, that's 2 touchdowns. Maybe they're not recognizing what Big East Ben has been saying. And maybe if you listen to the rest of this podcast, maybe LSU has learned to not look at the crowd for the Instagram models and instead are not looking at their bank accounts and their NIL deals. So take LSU plus 14 at Big East Ben on Twitter. Just gave you that one. For my best bet, I'm going to go with the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. They're a 3-point favorite at home to Jacksonville State, a new entrant to the CUSA. Unfortunately, Western Kentucky, their last 2 matchups, and they had a really tough loss on the road at Sam Houston State. It's tough to go in next to that huge white statue and get a win, but they were in the game, had a lead late, if not for a late turnover. So grab LSU plus 14 at Big East Ben and grab Western Kentucky -3. And that'll do it for this episode of The Need for Seeds. We are probably getting kicked off in a second. So do you have anything to say to the people, Big East Ben? We got 1 minute and 9 seconds before this clock ticks off.
No, good show. I think I said a lot of important things.
Yes, I think there are 2 more rants than we're used to. And Ben promised that it's going to be 5 episodes between the next one. So at that rate, we're probably looking like we're heading into March where Marquette has regained their momentum. They're a 3 seed and they will make a deep, deep run into the round of 32. So thank you for tuning in for another great episode of the Need for Seeds podcast on the Betting the Pitch Podcast Network. We'll talk to you next Friday night with another breakdown of the January 19th and January 20th cards that weekend.